Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Now to Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Gen V Season 1, Episode 4. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we're picking up in the aftermath of Sam's escape. And obviously Indira and Dr. Cardosa are, they're standing over... They're standing over Greg's dead body, who she keeps calling Bob. I'm like, because Bob, I would assume Bob's still alive, not unless he's dead. The last time we saw Bob was episode 2. Did he ever pop up as episode 3? I don't remember. But yeah, he was the one that was sucking the flashlight at the end of episode 2. So that was Bob. And it's like, oh, even in death, Indira couldn't get his name right. And I love that Cardosa's like, oh, maybe... I love the like starting off like in his ear canal. I was like, that's new. And Cardosa's like, oh, maybe Sam penetrated it with his penis. And it's like, you really think he skull effed him? And it's like, I'm surprised we're getting that much skull effing like referenced in this show. I just thought that was wild. But either way, so I just thought that was so interesting that it, and even Indira was like, really? That's your like medical opinion that's what Sam did? She ended up finding the little shoe that Emma had. So she pieces it together like, right, who could have done this? She saw the trailing of the blood going to the drain, found the little shoe. So she even asked Marie about it later on, like, oh, have you seen Emma? And it's like, yeah, okay. So she knows exactly who she's dealing with. So there's that angle to it. And obviously, everyone's together when they find out, like, okay, so Sam potentially escaped. It seems like his way of getting around is he goes full-blown Hulk. Because apparently he's even stronger than Golden Boy. So, once again, we don't really always know the power scaling. Someone else had this interesting conversation, and it's something that The Boys doesn't really talk about, but I was watching The Break Room, and they were talking about this. I think Jay had brought up this point that like, every superhero has some level of superhuman strength. Some just have... It's like a baseline, like, everyone gets a superhuman strength boost, but everyone has, like, their main ability. But then, like, the scaling varies. So, like, Golden Boy was super strong, but, Sam is even stronger than him type of situation. Even because Golden Boy thing was like, yes, he's super strong, but he also had his fire ability. That was his main thing. So beyond Sam's superhuman strength, we don't really know. So he's definitely, and especially with him being, I'm sure he's supposed to be a more direct parallel to the Hulk because he is kind of losing his mind. Now, whether that's just natural, like something that stems from his family, whether it's something that the Compound V unlocked inside of him when it came with his powers, very much like it might be like a very Legion situation of, oh, are you sick because of your powers, or are your powers manifesting the way they are because you're sick? Chicken or egg type of situation. So that might be where Sam's circumstances lie. But obviously, it's like none of them know what happened to Emma, and it's got everyone freaked out, especially because Kate's telling Andre he shouldn't have done what he did. I mean, because Jordan's really caught up in, like, the numbering, because the rankings have been adjusted now. Now Marie's number 2, Jordan's still number 5. Sadly, I think Jordan's kind of realizing, like, the only reason why I think there's a little insecurity there where it's like, I only get as far as I did because of Brink? If I don't have Brink anymore, because Brink was the one that was always in my corner. Once again, the whole, like, Marie's powers aren't 4-quadrant related. Jordan isn't 4-quadrant related too, because it's like, right, being by gender and pronouns, it's like, that's not going to sell everywhere, especially in the US. I'd assume there are places around the world, in other countries, that it won't sell well either, but obviously you're focused more so on, like, the home front of, like, the US first and foremost. That comes first and foremost being, like, American heroes and everything. But either way, because we don't really touch on the international angle of it, because Vault is an international company. We typically stay stateside for the most part. But either way, so obviously for Jordan, it still matters the most, but it's also like, right, if we get caught up in all of this, we're going to, like, suffer for it. But for Andre, he's got guilt over, like, yes, he asked Emma to do this because it's like, he's like, I had to do something. But Marie's like, yeah, but you didn't do anything. You sent Emma into the lion's den. Thing is, she might be dead, and that eats away at Andre. He's got to deal with that. He's dealing with the fact is he knows that his dad's connected to all of this. And even to the point, he's talking to Kate about it, and she's like, maybe your dad is trying to protect you. He's like, no, I know my dad. Like, this just reconfirms all that I've kind of known about my dad for a while. Because it's like, for so long, all I've ever wanted, my dad wants me to be just like him. And I brought that up previously. It's like, it's this complicated thing of, is Polarity doing all that he's doing for Andre's sake, or is it just his sake of like, I want the best for you? What parent wouldn't want that for their child? Or is it just a situation of, no, I suck and your reputation affects me and it messes because you are my legacy. So you looking good makes me better. Because once again, it's like, oh, kid's a chip off the old block. He kind of looks like me when I was younger, so on and so forth, right? So, and we still don't know where he stands in that. He could easily be, because let's face it, as effed up as he is, we've seen moments where Homelander has been a decent father to Ryan. But we also like, could he end up being a soldier boy where it's like, I mean, that could be a direct parallel. Like, is Andre and Polarity's relationship more like Homelander and Ryan? Like I said, it's really effed up, or is it closer to Soldier Boy and Homelander, where it's like, and Soldier Boy's relationship with his own father? So that's going to be interesting. But for him, it's like, I used to mimic everything. I watched my dad's movie Area 51 over and over again and mimic his stance. I wanted to be him. But now I realize, like, my dad's not who I thought he was. The fact is, I wanted to be a hero like him, but now he knows about what's going on in the woods and he's not doing anything. For whatever his reasoning may be, he's not stepping up. He's supposed to be a hero, but this place is supposed to foster heroes. And it's because Vought being a lying pile of dog shit is still not public knowledge. The mass clips every once in a while, but they're very good at having a PR to really like slip that under the, so like anytime dirt's come out about Vought, they've always been able to pass the buck to someone else. Oh, the Compound V, oh, that was Stillwell, so on and so forth. Oh, we had no idea about Stormfront being a Nazi, and obviously Homelander had his redemption arc from dating her. So it is that Vought's always able to come out on top, so the general public doesn't know. I mean, we only know how terrible Vought is because we've had the 3 seasons inside look into it. But when you're outside being brought in, like when you're a part of that from the outside looking in, you're just like, oh my God, this is great. And I'd do anything to be a part of it until you get a part. I mean, I'm sure there's the direct parallel to a lot of places in the world. I'm sure there's like a direct parallel you can make to some aspects of Hollywood where it's like, oh, it's glitz and not as glitz and glamour once you get in there. It's a wild beast that could chew you up and spit you out type of situation. And Vaught's exactly like that. So, and they're all kind of learning, like, once again, there is the underlining thought of, hey, our parents did give us Compound V, but I'm sure even an Andre justifying, like, right, my dad's great and I want it to be just like him, so I'm looking at these powers as a gift. Because he doesn't have that same, we haven't dived into it really, except for last episode where Kate talked about, like, man, fuck our parents. They're the ones who did this to us, trying to make money off us. Andre still has a more prior to at last episode, he had a more positive relationship with dad. He still had to live up to his dad's expectation, but it's also expectations he wanted, because he wanted to be like his dad. But it's just like, as he's gotten older, it's just like, I want to be my own person. I don't want to just be a carbon copy of you. So there's all that that's kind of rummaging through Andre, even to the point later on when they were getting interviewed and Tech Knight smelled Kate on Andre, very reminiscent of Homelander smelling Butcher on Maeve. It felt very similar to that. But for Andre, that's just like being interviewed and it just all being, once again, just realizing how much BS it is. His friend is being dragged through the mud like he's some lunatic. And it's like, I know the truth. And Dad, you know the truth, but neither, like, I can't say anything without getting everyone that's involved in this in trouble. But you have the power and position. You could do something you choose not to for whatever reason. Whether it is protect me or whatever, we don't know your reasonings. But once again, we'll see whether there'll be more to Polarity or not. Whether he's just going to be another scumbag in this universe or whether he's going to be a decent enough human being. But at least he has Kate, and I'm curious to see where that goes, because they haven't had that conversation since episode 3 about, I mean, they talked about it a little bit, but they haven't had an opportunity to really, really talk about them, like, sleeping together. It's like, how do we feel about that? Like, where do we go from here? It's like, it hasn't been that long since Luke died, so how do we handle this? So that's going to be an interesting thing for them. But, rewinding a little bit, we get introduced to Tech Knight, which I'm like, has he ever, I vaguely feel like I've heard his name pop up in in the boys, but maybe I'm misremembering. But I love, obviously, they're going for the very like true crime docu-series type of thing, which I'm like, I mean, for first and foremost, it's like very spot on, obviously. I know because my mom, she hasn't watched them as much lately, but like those like type of shows on like ID and stuff like that, like my mom would keep those shows like on rotation. Cause I don't, like I said, I haven't seen her watch it. She's kind of a fan of crime dramas and thrillers, but especially like that. It's too depressing, like to me, to watch real life. Like I can separate it in my head when it's like a TV show and it's scripted, it's fictional, even if it's based on. I can still have that separation to some extent, but when it's like real life stuff, I'm like, it's too depressing to look at. So either way, I think if my mom was into podcasts, I'm sure she would be into true crime podcasts and stuff like that. But I guess she's not a podcast person, so. Either way, but I felt like, oh man, that's that. And so he's there, and we kind of also learned it. For one, he's a fellow alumni, also played by Derek Wilson. I was like, hey, that's so dope. I forgot his character from Preacher, but I want to say Preacher probably was the first thing I ever saw him in. There was something else I was looking on IMDb. I had no idea he was in. I didn't remember he was in at all. I don't, because one of the other things was like Future Man, which I was like, I mean, I know Seth Rogen was a part of that. I know he was actually in it a little bit, but I was like, was he also an executive producer, him and Evan, for that? Because I know they were executive producers on Preacher as well, so that's why I'm wanting the correlation there of like, there was some other project I saw, I was like, oh, is he in that? But either way, I was like, that's dope, and he plays such a piece of shit. It's also interesting too because I recently I cut out a short that went up Thursday where I referenced Future Man because I was talking about Haley Joel Osment, who also in The Boys. So it's funny how that all works out like that. Either way, just the timing's interesting. But yeah, his power is that basically he's able to examine people. Like he's not like a full, I guess, human lie detector, but it's just like he has enhanced sensory things that allow him to notice, like, all right, sweat beating down. Oh, your pulse just went up. So he kind of is, I guess, a human lie detector, and it's kind of the worst person to have around. But for him, it's like, oh, I'm actually sitting me here to kind of like, yeah, get free reign to do my series. But it's like, no, I already know what's what here. We're just looking. We're going to tell this magnificent story, and then we're going to follow a fall person. It has to be a student, but it's like, all right, fine, but just don't make it one of the top 5. Which he still went out of his way to interview them. Luckily, a lot of like. Probably would have been an issue if Emma was there, but luckily she was isolated not isolated, but she was away from all this the entire episode. But, I think he probably would have interviewed, well, because he didn't interview Marie. He used her as an example, like, to kind of break her in front of the entire class, just to show, like, oh, this is how you break a witness, which they did kind of hint to, like, oh, yeah, but a lot of people he ends up, like, interrogating have either, like, unalived themselves or get beaten to a pulp and end up in a coma. So it's like, all right, he's not, I mean, I guess we shouldn't be too surprised. It seems like Adokan doesn't, I mean, the best person that seemed to come out of this was, because everyone at like A-Train's a piece of shit, but once again, we saw like, I mean, the glimpse of what we got at the beginning of the first episode, he probably was a decent person at one time, but once again, this machine that is VOT chews you up and spits you out and like devours your soul. I'd say like amongst them, it's like Maeve is like the best person, and even she sadly looked at herself like a piece of shit. That's why I think it's so interesting, because it definitely seems like Emma and Maeve are like, because she idolizes Maeve, and I'm sure that's what Maeve speaks to her in that way, where it's like, it wasn't publicly known like how like Maeve like had a lot of self-hatred for herself. It isn't something that just happened over the course of the show. It's been that way for a while. She hated a lot of stuff. A lot of Homelander was a lot of that. And hopefully now that her and Elena are together and she's just a normal human, like that won't be an issue. But I think it's an interesting parallel. I think Emma is going to be kind of like the Maeve of the series, where it's like she's got a lot of insecurities. But switching gears to Emma for a bit, her time with Sam, he ended up like grabbing her and jumping, like I said, Hulk jumping. I don't know if I finished that thought process, but again, that's like how the Hulk mainly gets around, at least that I'm aware of. But my main thinking about that is based on like the Ultimate Destruction video game. But he's done it in the MCU as well, where it's like that's how he gets around long distances. It's just like massive jumping. But yeah, Emma has to break the news to Sam about Luke, because he's like, no. The only person I could call to and rely on is my brother. But it's like, yeah, he died. It's like, no, my brother's too strong. Like, no one would be able to hurt him. It's like, he killed himself. And Sam breaks down because the only person he had left in this world is gone. And Emma making that promise, like, hey, don't worry, I'm by your side. He's like, yeah, but eventually you'll leave. I'll mess this up so much that you'll leave. But she's like, I promise, I'm not going to leave. We're in this together. Which I'm kind of scared, because I'm like, the sad thing is, there's going to be a situation where she probably can't keep that promise. But for now, like, she's trying to be that person. I think for her, for the first time, she feels like she's doing something. That's why she went on this mission, because it's like, hey, I can use my powers to actually do some good. She underestimates her powers, and like it's like, oh, how, like, because in her mind, it's like, my powers aren't getting small, my powers throwing up. That's all I'm good for, you know? And I'm sure, like, having a YouTube channel and those hate comments telling you terrible things about yourself, it's, once again, when you have insecurities and people like feed into that, you feed into that negativity. She already hasn't, like, she can't escape it, because it's in her own head. She's dealing with it from her mom. She's got it, like, online, like, when you're bombarded, because a lot of people underestimate, like, oh, you could just turn it off. It's like, yeah, but once you see it, like, it's, you know, especially a younger generation, even older generations, people underestimate, like, how much that can, like, mentally F with you. And so for someone so young, especially in a business that thrives on brand and kind of putting yourself out there, like, it's hard to kind of not, like, just shut it out. It's like, especially at such a young age, especially with everything you're going through. And the moment people poke at insecurities you already have, it's amplified by 1,000. Because you can think something bad about yourself, but I feel like the moment someone else says the things that you feel about yourself, it cuts 1,000 times deeper. So that's where it's like really resonates. That's where, like, that comes up for Emma. I mean, I resonate in that aspect of, like, you know, those you know, insecurities, whatever they may be. I think a lot of people can resonate with that. But, like, this beautiful bond that's forming between her and Sam, someone who, I mean, both legitimately characters who, I mean, a lot of these characters dislike themselves for a variety of different reasons, but, like, Sam and her in particular, like, they have a lot of, like, self-hatred, because for him, it's like, I'm mentally unwell, and I'm not okay in the head, so, and they had this moment where they were close together. It's like, oh, it's just kind of the two of us. And Sam kind of got nervous. It's like, oh, like, let me go. It's a very, like, Frenchy and Kimiko thing of, like, when they kissed it. He was like, do you want coffee? I think I want some coffee. I'm going to go get us some coffee. It's that type of situation. But then he starts hearing this music, and you're like, is that something or connected to the woods, or is that something else but the music and the words he was hearing? And then all of a sudden, he's watching the TV. And I was like, is that Jason Ritter? It's like, oh yeah, it's Jason Ritter as television's Jason Ritter. I was like, I love that you're playing yourself in this universe. I love it. Also, I love that deep puppet is so disgusting, especially because the gills on it. I was like, ew, like, that's even, like, him having gills in real life, like, the character of the Deep, like, is somehow less disgusting than the puppet having, because it has, like, fuzz on it, and, like, that's unnerving, and I don't know why. And it's like, oh, come on, Sam, you know what you have to do. You got to go kill Dr. Cardosa. It's like, come on. Oh, it's not just what you need to do. It's what you want to do. It's the only way you're going to be able to protect her, because you can't protect her otherwise. I mean, your brother's gone now, too. So it's like, once again, it's just like he's drowning in all of that, and he ends up going after Cardosa. So, because Marie tried to get help from Rufus, which I was like, oh, I guess Kate's compulsion finally wore off, because you're no longer smacking yourself in the balls. But he offers to help, but he ends up being god-awful piece of shit. Man, you were taking a lot of damage in the genital area, homie. You took a bat to your nuts every hour and yelling out Jumanji because of Kate. And then, oh, lo and behold, because at first when he was like, oh, like, I was like, okay, you're a creep, but are you actually going to help her? And when he was like, all right, Marie, I need you to kind of get, like, actually sit beside me. I'm like, what are you doing? And when it went into his mind, I was like, I thought, like, oh, is he going to, like, do a mind palace thing? At first I was like, is this all in his head? Because Jordan was nearby, and they knew kind of, like, what kind of a piece of crap he is. But the fact is that, yeah, he's there, like, was about to date rape her. I was like, Jesus, dude. And he'd be being like, no, it's not what you think. Because that's at first, I tried, I know it's stupid for a split second. I was like, is this actually a thing of like, you're actually helping, but like it's a weird thing where like in your mind palace, you have to be, oh no, it's not even your mind palace. You literally, mentally, you pheromone roofied her and took her back to your place. And it's like, I guess it's kind of a known thing that he's a creep, but Marie ended up exploding his dick. I was like, Jesus. Also, this show, I mean, it took us 3 seasons before we got anything like directly on screen. But I guess it's like, cool. We were able to get away with that termite situation in The Boys. So let's penis it up this season. It's like first, we get in the first episode. We're getting it now. It's like, Jesus, homie, come on. I don't know if this show was trying to be like, hey, women have so long had to be the ones out front and center, like fully nude for stuff. It's time for men to be on the other side of that situation to kind of equal things out. It's like, hey, we're going to be equal opportunities. Or maybe it's just them being like, hey, there is plenty of female nudity in Game of Thrones. Let's swing the pendulum the other way and give us a whole bunch of male nudity. I don't think I've ever seen this much penis on screen. Like, holy shit. Wow. I mean, because you're just like, you thought the termite thing was wild, and now we get that. It's just like, and oh God, whatever. Oh, the makeup department and the special effects team. Oh God, you have a weird but kind of amazing, but also fucked up job when you work on a show like this. Holy shit, dude. But yeah, they just kind of walk away, and I even love Jordan being like, yeah, we kind of like double teamed that, exploding cock situation, that cock explosion, I think is what they said specifically. But that moment they shared where it's kind of like, yo, like, don't do anything stupid. Like, why would you even do that? It's like, I want to do something to help him. And it's like, you can't really, what about, not caring about anyone? It's like, yeah, but things have changed. It's like, you act like, all you care about is your ranking. Because if you did, you wouldn't have come to Marie, try to like help Marie. It's like, And there is like this moment they have, it's like, oh, you weirdo, like, I'm not going to save you next time. It's like, no, like, we kind of double teamed that situation. It's like, there's a bond forming. I was like, is this going to become like a really, really interesting friendship? That's what I was kind of thinking. So, which I thought that was an interesting turn of events when Marie was kind of being like, confronted by Tech Knight. And it's like, oh, what really happened? And it's like, fine. It wasn't me. I ran away. I was getting expelled. I found Luke killing Brink. I ran. Jordan's the one that actually stood and fought. And so now Jordan's getting the reputation that they wanted. It's like, but at the same time, it's like, why would you do that? It's like, you literally told me to do that several times. Like, what? You're welcome. But it's like, yeah, but I'm saying you're dumb because you're doing something stupid, but it's like, you are smart. And it's just like, you don't have to kind of do that for me. But Marie's making the point that, no, like, it's okay for me. Like, not everyone's a piece of shit. Like, people can be decent people. I think it's just Jordan always hasn't had that. I mean, this place has always been, and Jordan's got that mindset of, you got to look out for number one. You always got to look out for yourself, because who can you really rely on? Because it's like, well, Brink was the only person who looked out for me, but it turns out Brink's a piece of shit. But it's like, that piece of shit's the only one that looked out for me. So you kind of like distrust people. We saw last episode Jordan's complicated relationship with their family, specifically their dad, but their mom is kind of on the sidelines mitigating everything. But even then, it's just kind of like staying in the middle. It's not really choosing one side or the other. And so I was quite surprised when it turns into a them making out thing. I was like, hey, yo. And Jordan's like, oh, I'm sorry. And like Marie kind of gets into it. I was like, and then Emma walks in. It's like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, oh, a lot's happening. But I love that because it's like, I was like, well, technically speaking, Marie was about to have that threesome that Emma kept going on about in episode 1. So it's like, yeah, it was about to happen to some extent. Because, I mean, let's face it. What I also thought was kind of an interesting twist was Tech Knight being like, "Oh, you're right. I can't make it go after any of these students because they could be a resource. They could be a resource in the future. Like, hey, I could do future episodes of my show about them. So it's like, oh, they're going to be a resource of money. Like, they're all so jacked up that they'll kind of crack at some point, and I could use this to kind of make some content out of." So he's planning to put everything on Indira because she's a regular human, which I was about to say, are we going to find out she's not human? Or are we going to find out she's kind of like, is she going to be like a Victoria type of situation, but turns out she is, because she's not, because I thought that's what the reveal was going to be. She's going to reveal some powers and she was going to kill Tech Knight. It's like, no, she pulls a Edgar, but like I said, she has elements of Edgar, but I definitely treat her more like a Stillwell, where it's like, for her, it's like she knows how to navigate the heroes very well. Edgar just kind of showed no fear. Stillwell just had to navigate like all those personalities, specifically Homelander and his like mommy obsession. But turns out Tech Knight's got a proclivity, like he has a tumor on his head, and that kind of leads to one of his proclivities, and that's him fucking every hole he can get. I was like, dude, why do we have to be so weird? And I was like, why you gotta do my girl Missy weird like that by putting her song to him trying to fuck a blow dryer in a bathroom? Like, come on. Also, man, I haven't heard that song in so long. It's like, constant reminder of just how many bangers Missy Elliott's got under her belt with that catalog, dude. But hell yeah. Banger. Unintentional pun. But either way, that's what she's doing. She's blackmailing him. So like I said, she's definitely more of a Stillwell than Edgar, but there's elements of Edgar. And it's like, I might be a human, but I am well connected enough. And she is a psychologist too, so it's like she knows how to get inside of people. It's ironic that he's like the human lie detector, but she knows how to kind of, once again, kind of shows you. She's probably like I said, closer, probably like a Stillwell and an Ashley in some capacities. Like there's so many interesting characters that you can see so many parallels and similarities to other characters while also still being themselves. I am making such a point of it, but I don't want to make it so like, oh, they're this and that and comparing it to boys, but they're parallels. It's in the same universe, and there's like a repeating history of an older generation and a younger generation that's happening here. And kind of like that Naruto thing where like, oh yeah, like the generational thing kind of repeats itself and it gives birth to a new generation, and there's similar dynamics and personality clashing and stuff, so on and so forth. Like I kind of treat it like that, but also these characters do stand on their own. So but either way, the squad gets together to try and stop Sam, which he's going after Cardoso, and like I said, he's just having his breakdown moment. And what I thought was so dope is when Emma started eating, I was like, right, we've seen the reverse have we've seen her purge, like, but if she indulges, like, what's good? Is that how she grows? And it is. It's like, man, because we don't know, because that's what I think is so interesting, that, and I think that sets up an interesting parallel in this world where I've talked about it before. It's like, from what we saw, Termite never had to do anything. So even the same abilities could be something different in someone else. And once again, I go back to, I might have brought this in the previous episodes, maybe not, but Coy was bringing up a good point where it's like, this is the parallel I'm making, but he was kind of comparing it like, are the powers a byproduct of your personality, or is a personality a byproduct of your powers? So it's like the chicken or egg situation again. Like the best example I'll use, it's Misfits. If you've ever seen the show Misfits, great show. Highly recommend you check it out. The show is like 5 seasons, like single digit episodes per season. So it's like, 6, 7, 8, 8, and 8, if I remember correctly. But either way, in that show, everyone's superpowers reflected their personality. Like, for example, Simon was a character who always felt invisible. Oh, what is his power? Invisibility. So it's stuff like that where the powers match the personalities. So it definitely seems like that kind of has been the case with the abilities that everyone gets. So maybe a lot of Emma's issues stemmed from, like, her powers manifesting the way they did is because of her mom. Once again, she even said it last episode, her mom's the one that taught her how to put her fingers down her throat to throw up. So I don't think her mom knew that about her power. She probably just knew, like, because that's why I'm also curious, like, this is going to be a spoiler for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. if you care, but I'm curious, is it going to be like a yo-yo thing where it is like a mental thing of, like, once Emma's able to kind of work through, like, everything, her, like, the mental stuff she's going through, then maybe she'll be able to shrink and grow very much like a Termite, or maybe that's always going to be a byproduct of her ability forever. There's no getting, because the reason why I'm using, like, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., for example, like we found out with Yo-Yo, spoilers, her power, like, her having the, like, her power is, like, how far she can get in a heartbeat, but she always snaps back like a yo-yo, like, oh, you throw it out and the yo-yo comes back. That's kind of why she got the nickname, right? We find out like in the final season, it's a mental block. Her power, like there was a mental trauma she had, and that's why she jumps back, because it's tied to like some trauma she went through. But the moment she was able to confront that trauma, her power becomes limitless. She just becomes a straight up regular speedster. So that's what I'm curious if that's what's going to happen in Emma's case. Will she be able to kind of grow and shrink at her own discretion? Or will she always have to have the food thing be a thing? You know, that's going to be an interesting thing to see. But Emma, like ate her food, and then she, like, held Sam down. But it's like, right, it's just you and me. We're in this together. We'll figure it out. And even Marie tried to say, like, right, we're in this together. I promise. And then cut the black. It's like, wait, what was that? And then she wakes up in bed with Jordan, and it's like, okay, okay, interesting. So now, because a theory someone else had was, with everything, I mean, this was based on someone having at the time only seen like the first episode or whatever. They were thinking the reason why Golden Boy was like, Luke was like having like memory gaps and stuff, it's because of Kate. I don't think it's Kate, but it could be. Her powers can manipulate people's minds, so she could be like a real deep vault insider meant to keep like Golden Boy in line, like. Because someone had theorized, like, maybe, like, she's the reason why, like, people kind of forget. Like, maybe the mental block, maybe it's just pure trauma of Golden Boy, like, what he was remembering more and more. But it could be a thing of Kate was, and maybe yes, Kate knocked him out at Sage Grove last time, as we saw that in episode 2. But maybe it could also be a situation of, was that episode 2 or was that episode 3? Either way, it could be a situation of, because the memory Luke had was of his brother being younger, be like, it's all real, Luke. So it feels like someone could be blocking his mind. Like, once again, who's the psychologist here? Who's the dean and everything? It could be Indira's ability. And so it could be something on, so she could actually be like Victoria where she's hiding an ability, or it could be Kate, because Kate was there and they were all in the yard, like after like Emma stopped, Sam, but beyond that, we don't know. Like, we won't know until next episode, like, what the aftermath of, like, does Marie and the others remember? Like, do they just go, like, what happened? I don't, So it could be like because I could definitely see this being, because with Sam's position being what it is, they'll probably try to normalize and be like, oh yeah, made everyone kind of forget, and Sam's just here, like, as a student transferring type of thing. I don't know what they're going to do on that front, because all of our core cast was there. So it could just be easily like, hey, your memories were wiped, or, well, we also know Rufus can pheromone drug people. So maybe he did. Maybe that's what that is. I don't know. Not less Cardosa has powers or someone, or maybe like, his SO, or maybe even his child. We have no idea, but we won't know until like next episode whether it's like a mind wipe, mind altering thing. Because that's what I was bringing. That's the point I was bringing up, because like the way Luke's mind was about the whole thing. Like I said, he also saw like a young. He kept seeing his brother as a kid. I get it, storytelling wise, you didn't want to reveal like, oh, the person that Andre and Marie helped capture was Sam, was his brother. But the fact is they specifically did that. They could have easily just been like, oh yeah, here's his voice. But no, the fact is Luke specifically chose, like, I guess the child version of himself, like before like Sam's issues maybe like started arising. I don't know. Like, there's deeper things you could read into that. Like, but it could be like, oh, his mind was finally starting to remember after all this time, because it started wearing off if it's not re-upped every once in a while. Because they did have that thing in episode, like I said, where Luke was asking Kate to mess with his head, but she's like, no, I think you need to go through it. But we jumped to that scene, like, who knows if that could have just been like her implanting that in. I don't want to think that, but we're always going to have some complicated, fuckery amongst the crew of like the main characters. So it's going to be interesting to see if that ends up being a case, or was there some other part. I'm all over the place. I'm sorry. So I'm just going to stop it here. I do want to end this point with something I thought was kind of interesting about Emma. And I think this speaks volumes about her. She felt really bad about the guy that she killed. It's like, Sam's like, yeah, but like he was sadistic asshole. It's like, yeah, but what if he had kids? Like, she actually thinks it. Once again, very Maeve, but also a little Starlight mixed into that because she felt bad. I mean, the worst thing she's done as what she did kill a guy in season 2. We kind of brush over that, but yeah. Either way, it's definitely going to be interesting to see where the next episode takes us with all of this and where these reveals and what the aftermath of this ends up looking like and giving us a better answer of understanding what happened. So, but really that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.